Since 1953, the government has been conducting a top-secret mind control program to create super soldiers. These sleeper agents live among us, waiting to be activated. They could be your friend, your family, or the person you least expect.
Chariot progressive, listen. Mandelbrot set is in motion. Echo choir has been fielding the ball. Chariot progressive. Listen. Chariot progressive.
Is that a lyric from something? Do you want your soup? Hey, stop doing stuff to my car.
Hey, babes, what's up?
Hey, I just killed 2 people.
That's awesome.
No, they had guns and knives and they were being like total dicks. I took a spoon and I just I shoved it through this guy.
Why are people trying to stab you?
I don't know, but I'm like freaking out. I have a lot of anxiety about this. Oh! That would have hurt.
Agent Hale has been activated. He killed 2 operatives with a spoon.
A spoon? What? Lock it down. We go in and we take him out.
What if I'm like a robot?
How do you feel?
I feel kind of amazing.
Sir, Acid Hale confirmed on site.
Drone strike is a go.
Moving into attack position.
You ain't trying to get neuralized? Nuh-uh, Mike.
Hey, Rose, I think I could probably break this lock.
Please don't.
I think I'm in the anaphylactic shock.
That's not what that's called.
The old frying pan bullet trick.
Whoa.
Look at that right there. Fire now!
If they taking you, just tell them to make a you, huh? That's how it be. I come first like you.
Oh, man, come on. Just give us, like, one. Nick, what's happening?
I have to go to work. I love you.
Tony, I've watched that trailer a number of times now, and you're not in it.
No.
I don't actually. I mean, is your name? Can we?
Yeah.
So, are we seeing it?
Well, wait. That's actually not.
Oh, there it is.
That's not Kristen Stewart. That's me in drag. So.
Oh wow.
I'm in it.
What was the makeup process like every day on that?
Amazing. No, it's I am in it. I'm just I don't know what to say. Just not in the trailer. But I play the whole concept, which you kind of saw, was Jesse Eisenberg is this kind of quirky dude who you wouldn't expect to be a sleeper agent and has these mad ninja skills, and he discovers it as we discovered it, and then I work for the CIA, who's been kind of using him as a puppet the whole time.
It's really funny. It's
really
an extremely funny movie.
It's
and
fast.
You get
really
to do most of your scenes with Connie Britton,
who
right?
I love, and Topher Grace, who plays just a douchebag in the movie. And
King,
so I get
King douchebag. He made me angry while watching the movie.
Yeah, and so I get to work with them mainly. But I did not work with Kristen or Jesse, but I met them Tuesday night at the premiere, and they were very nice people.
Were you excited? Were you excited to work with Connie Britton? Are you a big Friday Night Lights fan?
I was, and I just like. There you go. I just like nice people, and she's a very nice person. No, but she's great, and my sister actually. Came to the premiere from Raleigh, North Carolina, because she's a massive Connie Britton fan, and so I kind of had to have her. I had to have a handler for my sister, but it was a lot of fun.
So when you get a role like this for this movie, do they ask you to kind of come in and do like the Tony Hale thing that you do, the great thing that everybody
you mean
loves?
The defeated and emasculated character.
Which
I do well.
I heard you say this morning that's what you do well, defeated and emasculated.
That's what I do well.
I wouldn't say well. I would say brilliantly, okay. Tony. Like you kind of, you're the master at this point.
It comes from a lot of pain. But they just said he was just this. I'm actually kind of the simple guy who works for the CIA, and then I kind of have to step up to the plate. So that was really fun, just to be able to because typically my characters don't step up to the plate, and I had to kind of step up to the plate a little bit. I mean, Buster Bluth, he's miles away from the plate.
No idea where that plate is.
Yeah.
Where do you think your ability to play that character comes from? Not just Buster, but your character in Veep and a little bit of this character. You jokingly said a place of pain, but I wonder if there's any truth to that.
Yeah, there is. What if I just started bawling, crying right now?
You got
You'd be
me.
like, yes. No, I mean, I think somebody asked me this recently, and I was a bullied kid, and I was a nervous kid. I was the asthmatic kid that that couldn't run around the playground. But I remember, like, when someone would say something, and this didn't happen all the time, but when it did, when they say something mean, I would turn and I would have these subtleties to myself and be like, well, that wasn't very nice. It's like, well, that's kind of harsh. And then you just kind of found ways of like self-medicating a little bit.
Where bullies like, yeah, I know, I'm
or they're
bullying
like,
you.
Yeah, or they're like, I can hear you.
I remember when I was getting bullied one time as a little kid, I turned to them and I said, well, I can tell when I'm not wanted somewhere. And they're like, you're not, loser, go away.
Yeah, exactly. So it's those little things you use all that anxiety and, you know, you kind of draw from that, I guess. But yeah.
When you started acting, did you realize you were drawing from that, or was it when you sort of got into the role of Buster that you kind of noticed it?
No, I think it's kind of. It kind of scares me how easily Buster Bluth came to me. I don't know what that says about me, but you know, you kind of bring what you bring. Like he was. All I read was he's an anxious kind of man-child who likes to massage people's shoulders. And I was like, game on.
Your agent was like, Tony, I got something
this
for
is
you.
Perfect. And then they kind of give you things as you go on. Like, you know, all of a sudden you're like, well, by the way, Liza Minnelli's your girlfriend, and a seal's going to bite off your hand. You know, so you kind of are or like, you know, Liza Minnelli happens to have the same name as your mother. And so, wow, there's a lot of mommy issues going on here. You know, so it's like as they bring stuff to you, then you begin to see the color of this guy, you know.
What was your trajectory as an actor? Was it always comedy for you? Did you want to be a comedic actor, or was that a place that you found you really excelled at?
When I was in New York, I lived here for about 8 years, and I mainly did commercials and I did theater. And I would definitely gravitate towards comedy, but I did sketch comedy here in New York with a group called King Baby. And I don't know, it was just, I really...
I'm sorry, it's called King Baby?
And actually, and Jim Gaffigan has an album called King Baby, and his wife was in the sketch group with me. And he asked, can I use that name for it? And we were like, yeah, go for it. But
take it away from
me. It was, I don't know, when I grew up, you guys might be too young, but I idolized people like Bob Newhart and Tim Conway. And these guys they never pushed the comedy. They would always just kind of, you knew their circumstances were crazy, and they would just sometimes just sit there and you could feel the tension. And I always loved that, you know? And so I think I always just I watched the Carol Burnett show just over and over and over and over.
It's a way to maintain a sort of reality.
If what the writers give you, if it's wacko, which many times in Arrested Development and Veep it is, the more real you play it, the funnier it is. I mean, if you wink at the camera, then it takes you out of the reality, you know? So you look at, granted, not that politics today aren't its own comedy, and we don't really need Veep anymore, but you look at the Veep circumstances, and they're just whack, you know? And if you just play that as real as possible, I think and Julia Louis-Dreyfus does a fantastic job of that, that's what's funny.
You're incredible on Veep, and you're nominated for an Emmy this year, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But before we dive more into your performance, let's take a look at a quick clip of you doing what you do on Veep.
Oh, thanks.
Ma'am, I'm really sorry for the painting, and I'm really sorry for the spending, but you have to understand.
Oh, shut up. Just shut up. You are unimportant, okay? And you have suckered on to me like some sort of a car window Garfield.
That is not true, ma'am.
You think you're some sort of a big shot here? Oh my God, you are not a big shot, Gary. You're a middle-aged man who sanitizes my tweezers. God.
You're wrong.
Excuse me?
When's Catherine's birthday?
June 8th.
9th.
9th.
Which senator's daughter's in rehab?
You're out of line, Missy.
Geldray. What are you wearing tomorrow?
I don't know.
I do. I'm your calendar. I'm your Google. I'm your Wilson the volleyball.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
I have broken my body for you.
Oh, come on.
I have let myself be laughed at. I have let myself be humiliated, and I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Most of the time, you don't even know that I exist, but I am fucking everything to you.
Oh, I am so happy to get somebody else to give me my hand cream.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
Can you find somebody else who did what I did?
You mean on Labor Day?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did. You just did. You just said Labor Day.
I said I would never mention that, ever.
Oh, God. Okay, look, I'm sorry if I lost my temper a little bit.
I am so sorry for the words that I just spoke.
You know, in a relationship, you know, it's just good to clear the air, is what I mean to say.
Yeah, I think any relationship.
Yeah, should do that, you know, from time to time.
Yeah.
That looks good.
Yeah, it's light sponge. Would you like a piece?
Okay, I'll have a piece, I guess.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's light sponge.
You just told me that.
Arrested Development is one thing. It's a great show. It's a classic at this point, and it's extremely funny. But there's something about Veep where I feel like you get to dig a little bit deeper and find a certain amount of emotional truth to these scenes while looking for the comedy.
Yeah.
What's it like for you to do that?
Nice. I mean, Gary, the character I play, is so beaten down by Selena Meyer that to have these moments where I can kind of speak up a little bit, that was nice. But the thing about Gary, he worships Selena so much. Like, he just loves her. He doesn't really hear the verbal abuse many times. He doesn't. He's got rose-colored glasses on, deaf ears. He just doesn't hear it because I think he goes home at night because he has this bag that he carries around his stuff. And I think he records his voice saying stuff in the bag, and then he puts a blindfold on and pushes play and just starts, how quickly can he get it out? That's like his nightly activity, because he just worships her so much. So when she said to me, "You're a middle-aged man who sanitizes my tweezers," I thought we were going to get married. You know, I can't, that just doesn't even cross my... and so then I snapped. And the great thing about the process of Veep is typically you don't have rehearsal in television. You just get the script and then you shoot. We have 2 or 3 weeks of rehearsal before we shoot. And that gives us that time to really see if things gel, improv, come up with stuff. And that scene specifically, you got to be careful because you just finding the rhythms of it. When does the climax happen? Because you kind of go, rah, 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 and then you get back to master servant. And it's that really just trying to find that vibe and working, obviously, with people like Julia, who's not only is she so good at what she does, but she's the coolest person. And I mean, she's so giving. She's a team player, and that's a gift. Because especially with comedy, if you have ego and you get entitlement, it just sucks creative energy out of a room.
No one wants to build on the scene. No one wants to find a better joke. You just
and
do what's
sometimes
written.
if people are so precious to their words, like, oh, it's my words, you don't feel that freedom. And and specifically if that number one in the call sheet is kind of this, everybody's walking on eggshells around him, everybody's kind of afraid to talk, and that sucks for comedy. I mean, it wasn't the way on Arrested Development, it's not the way on Veep. I've worked with some really good people, and that's, I think, huge for the freedom of the room.
One of the things about your character on Veep that I really like, and it might be in disagreement kind of what you're saying, is that when she says you think you're a big shot, what I've always liked about him, what's refreshing about him, is that out of everybody else, all the other characters, he doesn't think that he's a big shot. He kind of knows his place and has kind of accepted it.
I hear what you're saying.
But I could be wrong, yeah.
No.
Please, politely disagree.
No, I do. I think, but I think he has his own arrogance. I think he has his own... You know, he thinks that she can't live without him. You know, he thinks that she's walking around going, "Oh my God, where's my second half?" You know, so I think he has a pride of like, I'm her shit, like I'm the shit. I mean, she knows it. So I think there's that own kind of. He's very aware of what he thinks is his position. And granted, I don't even think she knows his last name, but in his world, she's like, "You got me." I mean, if she leaves office and works at Target, he's carrying her purse at Target. Like, he will just be by her side.
This is not your first Emmy nomination, right?
No, it's not. No, I don't know. No, it's not.
Just own it.
No, it's not.
When you first started acting, you had one of the things that I think people know of you was the Volkswagen commercial.
Yeah.
But then you're doing Arrested Development, and Arrested Development is an incredible show, so funny, but it wasn't very well recognized, at least audience-wise.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd get to this point where you'd have multiple Emmy nominations or recognized like this?
No. I mean, and I think if anybody gets to that point or is used to it, they just need to be popped upside the head. That's not something you get used to. It's like, it's a party I never thought I'd be invited to. And what's cool, you mentioned the Mr. Roboto. I don't know if you remember on Arrested, they did a callback where Buster is in the car and he's got his hook and he does to Mr. Roboto when he gets his hook stuck in the dashboard. And
what did you think when they pitched that to you?
It's funny, I haven't thought about that. Anyways. I don't know. That's what Mitch Hurwitz, who created the show, the stuff that he came up with. I never, ever, ever wanted to come up with an idea because his would be better. I give this example because one time I came up to Mitch and I was like, you know what, Buster needs to be on Dancing with the Stars, and they were like, I'm gonna have a seal bite off your hand, and I was like, better, that's better. So he just always bumped it up, and so something like the commercial, I never would have thought to do that, but he brought it back.
What did you think of the last season of Arrested?
I loved it. I mean, it was very unique because we weren't all shooting together. Everybody had different schedules, and I did miss being together. We didn't have as many group scenes, but the way he did it, where obviously Netflix releases it all at the same time, and the way it was like a puzzle. So if like you and I were talking in one scene, and then we separated, one episode would show where I went, and one episode would show where you went. And the fact with Netflix is you can jump back and forth and see that where that's going. So he followed that model. Honestly, it's where it's ended. I want to see what's happening. There's been something happening to my Liza. I think she's murdered, and I think Buster's involved. So I want the story. I want to kind of see where the story goes.
Is there talk about doing another season? I mean, it's one of these shows at this point that, like, anytime it's not on for a little while, everyone's like, "When's the reunion? When's the next season?" They've talked
about it. I'll probably find out on AOL.com. I don't really hear, but I know that they're talking about it. Yeah, and everybody wants to do it because I want the surprises. It doesn't follow any model, so I'm very curious as to what he's got up his sleeve.
When you signed on to Veep, did you know that the process was going to be getting the chance to have these rehearsals beforehand and really digging into the script that way, or was that a kind of lovely surprise for you when you started working on it?
It was kind of a surprise, and actually it was very nerve-wracking at first because all the writers are British. That's not why I was nervous, but
so dry, such dry wit.
They were terrifying. Why are you speaking in that weird dialect? No, but we would get the scene and then kind of improv it, and they would just kind of stand around with their little notepads and jot down what we said. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I got to come up with stuff. But it wasn't that. They were just seeing what gels and so you would just kind of do it as real as possible, and they were kind of seeing what's working, what's not working. So it wasn't about kind of bringing jokes up. It was just they wanted to see if it was working. And once I got kind of used to that system, I loved it.
Did you try to bring any jokes up at first? Did you have any sort of like fearful jokes that you threw out that were cheap, that they were like, no, just relax, it's okay?
Or you do that thing where you brought something up, and if people laugh, you'd be like, oh, thank God. But then if you don't bring anything up, you're like, I'm off the show. I mean, they don't want me on it. But then once I got past that, then I was very nervous at first, and then I got used to it.
Are you guys worried about the next season? I know that Armando Iannucci, the creator, left to go be with his family in the UK, and
I'm just gonna miss him. I really loved Armando and his team, Simon Blackwell and Tony Roach. I really love those guys. I think it's mainly the family unit is breaking up a little bit, and that makes me sad because I just love those guys. But I have mad respect because Armando wanted to spend more time with his family. And our new showrunner, David Mendel, did Curb Your Enthusiasm with Julia, Seinfeld with Julia and all these things, so I have trust in him. But I think it's going to be great, but I do miss those guys, yeah.
What did Armando bring to the show that you fear might not be there?
I think that's hard to be specific because it's what any... one thing is... it's his being a Brit, his perspective of American politics, which I think is interesting. You know, the guys that are working on it now are very political savvy, and there's going to be a lot of fun stuff. But then, you know, Armando kind of was looking from the outside in. And I mean,
sort of looking at the PR nightmare of politics. So much of the show.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I feel like when House of Cards comes out, all of the cable news channels try to say that House of Cards is very similar to American politics. And I'm like, I don't see that at
terrifying.
all. Veep is, it's just like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
Veep
And there's
is
murder.
much more.
Yeah.
There's multiple murders.
Who
Veep,
said that, by the way?
MSNBC. I saw numerous MSNBC shows.
That House of Cards was like politics? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrifying.
They're crazy.
If they've got inside from information, I'm moving.
But Veep feels much more realistic, and I've interviewed other cast members of Veep, and they've basically said, no, we're not trying to be that realistic at all. I mean, does it ever come up on set where like other issues with politicians or things that are that you can reference or use as an actor?
Well, what does come up is, what I've heard is people in D.C. really like the show. And the way
It's so weird.
It's weird, but I kind of get it, because if all they're seeing, like they see the behind the scenes, you know, but if all they're seeing on the screens is all these politicians like having their speeches and saying their sound bites and posturing and spinning, you know, they're kind of like, that's not what's going on behind the scenes. And when there's a show come out that takes maybe a satire, but takes a look at what might be happening behind the scenes, I think there's something comforting about it, because it brings the humanity back. You know, it's like these people are human beings. The stakes are really high. They're making massive decisions. You know they've got to go behind the scenes and be like, what the do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. Do you know? Let's try this. I'm insecure. All these people are talking about me. I look ugly. You know, it's like, you know, they have to, all that comes up, but we don't see it.
Well, there's a lot to take in. I mean, the humor of the show doesn't come from actual political decisions. It comes from human frailty and insecurity about very basic human things.
Exactly. And that's what I want to see, you know?
That's what, what kind of conversations do you guys have on set? I mean, after the rehearsals, do you basically go on set and shoot what's written at that point, or are you still improvising and working through the script?
One thing I have noticed with comedies is I used to get really freaked out by this, because when I was working on Arrested Development, I got on set, everybody was kind of making jokes and one-upping each other just off camera. And I remember thinking, like, is anybody going to have like a normal conversation just about their summer, or like, you know, what they had last night? But I realized that it's a sparring. It's a way to kind of get into the rhythm of what we're about to do, and that's what happens on Veep. Like, we just kind of make jokes and not one-up each other, but just kind of like improv jokes and tell funny stories, but you're just kind of getting into the rhythm of what we got to do, you know, because it's not like you're going to, you know, be behind the scenes and be like, oh my gosh, I just saw a dog die. Let's go. You know, it's like you just kind of want to get into that rhythm.
Has the show made you interested in politics at all, or more interested in politics?
Oh man, I get so overwhelmed by politics. I really do. I don't really know that much. My wife, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is a tangent, but I also really do not like any shows like Homeland or 24, or just as a part of my mind's like, yeah, that's going on somewhere. It's not entertaining. So I mean, I'll just watch CNN.
Pure escapist.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's just so depressing sometimes. It's all that information. So I subscribe to this. My wife got me onto this thing called the Daily Skim. Do you guys know what this is? And it's like a Cliff Note version. I love the really, thank you. But it's like a Cliff Note version of what happened in the day, and it's enough for me. It's like, I know what's going on, but like my in-laws have, you know, Fox News on loop all day long, just watching it. And I would just walk away and just bawl my eyes out. You know, it's too much for me.
For so many reasons, mostly because it's not news, so yeah. Don't clap for that. It's common knowledge.
Even like CNN or something, it's just there's a lot going on in this world, and I want to hear about it, but just like that's a lot.
I think we have some time for questions. Who in the audience has a question? Anyone? No, go right here.
Oh yeah.
So this isn't a question. We're live tweeting your
Uh-oh.
quotes.
Oh,
and
crap.
we said when you said about Julia Louis, not only is she so good at what she does, but she's the coolest person.
Yeah.
And she replied and she said, oh good, you got my check, and obviously it cleared.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus just responded to that?
That's hilarious.
That is amazing. How does she have the time?
I know. She had the time to write that check. What if there was a check involved?
Julia, if you are watching, Julia, I'd love a check too. If you can. I think you're great. You're just really awesome. Do we have any other questions here?
Hi, Tony Hale. My name's
Hey.
Steve.
Hey, Steve.
What's up, Steve? Hi. I just wanted to point out you had one of the funniest moments ever in Emmy history, I think, when you stood behind Julia. Oh my, yeah.
That was fun.
Yes.
She actually called me, for those of you who didn't see it, when she got her award, I came up behind her and held her purse, her clutch, and then we didn't really work it out, but we said this would be fun, and then I was the one who reminded her to thank her family and tell them that she loves them very much. But the cool thing is, like, that morning, she says, I was in the shower, and I thought about it, and let's do this. And in my mind, I'm like, you're going to win, and this could be this could bomb on live television. But I'm like, okay. So thankfully, it worked out, and it was a lot of fun.
I'm a student at the Barrow Group where I...
No way!
Yes.
I love the Barrow Group.
Yes, so I was just wondering, and for everybody here, what your experience was like there, and if there's any tools or moments you remember that you still think about today.
You know what? I had this, there was an acting, I won't say what school it was before the Barrow Group, but the teacher was one of those like drama teachers that was just like hugely arrogant. Everybody's walking on eggshells around him. We were all just like trying to please him. Did you like it? Did you like it? Did you like it? And it was just the worst environment for me. Maybe for other people it was great, not for me. Then I went to, some people like that kind of thing. But it's like, then I went to the Barrow Group and it was all about like, hey, this is playtime. We're just going to play. And it was such like, yeah, that's why I got into it. You know, it's not, and I remember this other, and not that this word is wrong, but many times people were like, hey, you did great work today. Really great work. And it was just like so heavy, you know? And it's not that, I mean, you can say that, but it was like, it's play. I love that they brought play into it, you know? Concerning any tools, the first thing actually at the top of my mind is just something that, I don't know if it's it's just a life tool being an actor, honestly, it's a big lesson that I have had to learn about being present, because I found, and I wrote a children's book about this, because I found that anytime I was on a job, I was still looking to my next job. And in this business, everybody's like, what's next for you? What's next for you? What's next for you? And I don't think they ask dentists that. I don't think, or lawyers, But I think it's just a part of it. So I found myself, I was always looking to the next thing. And in the book, this little bee travels around and is like, you got to just be, man. You got to just be. And I'm suck at being present, but I realized when I booked Arrested Development, I had put so much weight on getting that big thing, getting that sitcom, because that's all I wanted. And when I got it, I loved it, but I still found like, oh man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be because I'd given it too much weight. And it's that whole thing, and I wasn't being present. I just never been practicing being present. It's like if you're not practicing being content where you are, you're not going to be content when you get what you want. And whenever I meet an actor, I'm like, you just, as my friend says, you got to wake yourself up 100 times a day to where you are, because this is what we got. And it's about really trying to be present. And I suck at it, but I talk about it a lot to remind myself, because it's really easy to always be like, that's coming. And it could be like, for me, it was a sitcom. For somebody else, it could be like getting married, having a baby. But it's like, we can always live in these other places, and we forget where we are. And this is, if we really practice being present here, it makes that other thing, whatever it is, so much better. So, sorry. It's hard. I just turned into Oprah.
Great work, man.
But it's true. I think it was a mistake I made, and I love telling people that because I'm trying to learn myself.
When was the moment that you realized that you might not be present? Was it when you landed Arrested Development and you didn't feel content?
Yeah, I remember that moment where I was like, this is what I've wanted, and it didn't satisfy me the way I thought it was going to satisfy. And guys, this is like the best writing, best cast, best show. And I was like, something's wrong here. And it's just because I hadn't been doing what I think is a discipline of being present. Doesn't come easy, and I'd given it way too much weight. We
have another question here?
And also when I have my daughter, because one thing kids do to you is they force you to be present, because you got to keep them alive. And it was like, oh, I haven't been doing this pretty much my entire life, and so I really had to start.
I thought you were going to say, I still didn't feel it.
Yeah. What if I was like, this isn't now?
Next question.
Hey.
Hi. so many questions I wish that we could ask you. Did you ever say, "Oh, I'd give my right hand to play a character like Buster
Oh,
Bluth"?
nice one.
bad.
I've never heard that, but I love it.
You play such delightfully delusional comedy characters.
Thanks.
Oh my gosh! And your improv, and then Archibald, the whole nine. Have you ever thought about playing a more dramatic character? Are we going to see you do Shakespeare?
Yeah, sure. I'm doing Hamlet next weekend. No, I did this movie, Happy Thank You More Please, with this director named Josh Radnor about a couple years ago, and it was so fun, and it was a dramatic role. And I remember I had just come from shooting something which was very quirky, and I loved it, but it took some time to get used to it because I just didn't think, I knew I could do it, but kind of always looking for the bit or looking for something like that. And also there was this Law and Order I did where I remember I got cast and my daughter gets kidnapped. And I remember telling people, I'm going to be in New York for a week. We should have drinks. Like, let's hang out. And then I got there, and I was crying all day long in these scenes. And I was like, oh, my God, this is hard. And it's because when you do comedy, you're like, let's go out. This is fun. Let's keep it going. But, like, with drama, it's like you got to walk through some of that stuff. And I have a daughter, and you have to kind of go there if somebody took her. And, I have huge admiration for people that do that a lot because I barely can watch something so heavy, so to walk through that, it's a lot, but I do enjoy it. It's just, it's a lot. I don't know if that answered your question. I apologize.
Hi. So one of my favorite things about Arrested Development is that it's almost like Shakespearean in the specificity and like the layers of connections and everything.
Oh, yeah, sure.
With that, how much freedom was it and what was it like creating such a specific character that had to fit so specifically into the rest of the show? Like how much, what was the collaboration like between you and then the writing?
Yeah, sure.
What was that process?
Man, I do remember when I saw the role and you kind of bring your spin to it and then the writers come in and it kind of colors it. But I do remember going up to Mitch Hurwitz and asking a very actory question. I said, what do you think Buster wants? And he said to me, he says, all Buster wants in life is safety. And I was like, ah. And so anytime that safety was threatened, he would just spin out. And it really helped me kind of, for another actor word, very motivate kind of things. Because he was also in a very defensive mode all the time. Like he was always just kind of this, and his hands would go back, and he was just always kind of like, what's coming at me? What's coming at me? And so you just kind of began, because his physicality would kind of change over time, He actually became a lot more animated as the time went, but I don't know, it is that collaboration.
Is there any reason that he became more animated as the time went?
I think this, as you, I don't know actually, because I will say, I saw when I was watching, when we were about to do the 4th season, I watched the 3rd season, I was like, wow, Buster is a cartoon character. It was some of the stuff I was like, whoa, bring it down. But I think the circumstances got so heightened sometimes that here I am with a hook, and I'm dating Liza Minnelli, and I'm wearing 5-year-old clothes. I don't know, you just kind of, I guess it just kind of happened. And then one of my favorite episodes was when his dad, we thought my dad died, and it was a funeral, and I'm dressed up like a stripper, but an army stripper, and I don't know, that was just one of my favorites.
Next question.
Hi. I was wondering what you find the differences are between set on Arrested Development or Veep and just how you work with the different casts.
Sure. I will say, since the first Arrested Development was my very first, for lack of a better word, big gig, because I had done commercials and stuff, and I loved doing commercials, but it was kind of my first television series. And so I was very overwhelmed. I had never been on a studio lot. I had never had free food just brought to me at lunch. I was really just kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. And so I was kind of very wide-eyed, and I was kind of going through that kind of experience that I talked about contentment. So that was very different than my experience on Veep, because Veep, it's so fun, and I love the people on Arrested Development, but I'm just a lot more for lack of a better word, present on Veep. So when they brought us back, when Netflix brought us back, it was so, I felt it was such a gift to be able to do that again, maybe in a little bit of a different state where I'd learned a little more. And so just to enjoy it more and to relax into it and not be so serious with it.
A little more confident?
And a little more confident. I mean, as confident as Buster Bluth can get, but like a little more just kind of, a little more free with it. So, yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Who has the next? Right
Hi,
there.
Tony. Big fan.
Oh, thanks,
so
man.
You've been a part of Veep and Arrested Development, probably two of the best comedies of all time, at least in my
that's
opinion.
nice.
What would you say has been like? Would you say has been like an X factor of those two shows that made them so great, or than being part of both?
Yeah. What was maybe special about them? Is that kind of what you're asking?
What was like the X factor that made them so like? Loved like critically and like had this.
I don't know. I will say with Arrested Development, at the time it was very unique, and I think it maybe stood out that way. Because it didn't really grab on until it was done, and Netflix and people started passing about DVDs. To this day, my parents don't get it; they don't think it's funny, and so they. I think there was a large audience that still doesn't get it. So I think there was that unique factor, and obviously it was with comedy. And I think with both shows, it's very dense. Typically, some comedies kind of follow a formula, and you kind of have the 1-2 joke, 1-2 joke, 1-2 joke. With Veep and Arrested, there's a lot going on. And so you have to sometimes rewatch it, catch those jokes. Many times, people ask me, do I get annoyed when Arrested Development fans come up? I love it because they share things with me that I don't know. So like, oh yeah, remember when that blue handprint was in the back? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's hilarious. So it's like all these things that I miss. So they're both writers made it so dense, and maybe that's what made it unique.
Are there any other actors on Veep that you don't get the chance to have as much time with that you wish you did?
I love Jonah.
Timothy Simmons.
First of all, the names that he's given is so unfortunate. They called him human scaffolding and just like the largest single cell organism. Yeah. He's my favorite. It's something like this. It's something like they called him the Washington Monument. If the Washington Monument was made entirely out of dead penises, dicks, or something like that, just awful. But he's so awful, and Gary is so kind of somewhat innocent. I like that kind of sparring. So
absolutely, Tony. Congratulations on the nomination. Good luck.
Thanks so much
on Emmy night. Congratulations on American Ultra. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it.
Guys, American Ultra comes out tomorrow. American Ultra comes out tomorrow. Go check it out. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.